Madam Battaini-Dragoni. First of all, I appreciate for the fantastic work. What is the objective for the Sofia conference, and do you think it has been achieved?
Well, thank you first of all for raising this important question, because it concerns the future, the present and the future of our children. This meeting in Sofia today and yesterday was used with the purpose to launch the new strategy for children in Europe, for the member states of the Council of Europe. It means 47 member states. So we are very happy that we had the opportunity to present the strategy here and to make sure in particular that because of the presence of very important people here at this meeting, we can have a kind of reassurance about the implementation of the strategy. Let me tell you that we were very pleased to see and gratified by the presence of not only the President of Bulgaria, but also the President of Malta. Then we had 16 ministers of social affairs or family affairs dealing with the children policies around, and I didn't count the number of the many experts, academicians or experts in social work that were present here. The program was very well articulated about the main issues dealing with the situation of children nowadays, as the strategy itself, of course. So we discussed about questions of children and poverty, children as refugee children. We discussed about the issue of children, victims of violence. And we discussed also about the questions of children in the digital area, this digital generation, as they say. So these are some of the issues that we discussed. Many more were there. But the purpose, of course, is to make sure that if we teach to young people that they have rights and their rights have to be respected, then we are making sure that they will in the future grow up as adults who have understood the importance of rights, and they will transmit rights or behave accordingly in future societies. So all in all, this is not only an investment for our children today, but also an investment for our societies, democratic societies, in the future. So we looked at civil and political rights of children. We looked at social and economic rights, but also educational and cultural rights. In other words, we were really looking at children not as those who have mini rights, but those who have full rights. So that was the gist of the meeting. And as far as results are concerned, the fact of having here so important people was a clear indication that many European political leaders mean it when they speak about their children, and they attach importance to this strategy. So we have already, by their simple presence, already constituted an important political network to make sure that in the future this strategy is not going to remain on paper. This strategy is going to be implemented. So this, I think, was the very important result, plus the fact that children themselves were here. This morning we had the session of presentation of their perception and their understanding of what was discussed. And I think that the participation of children, which is a very important chapter in the strategy, is also important for the future in terms of democratic citizenship.
What are the relations between Albania and the Council of Europe with regards to the rights of children?
I have to say that we are very pleased by the fact that we had over the last months the opportunity to work intensively from the Council of Europe with the Albanian authorities with a view to help in the preparation of the white paper that has been drafted for your country in relation to the protection of children and the promotion of the rights of the children. So this, I think, was an extraordinary opportunity for a country like Albania to work closely to the organization it belongs to. So it was more than legitimate to request this support, and we are very pleased that now this national strategy, if I can use this word, which is enshrined in the white paper, has been prepared. And I know that you are preparing a law which is expected to be ready before the summer, and I do hope that the law which finally your parliament will adopt will be very close, if not identical, I would say, to the work that you have undertaken with the Council of Europe, and as I said, which was in this white paper. So let's close fingers, and I'm going to follow personally, very closely, this question in order to make sure that the result of this very close cooperation is bringing results.
What commitment do you expect from European countries for the Sofia strategy?
Many results, of course. We would hope that, for instance, in the field of getting children out of poverty, the measures that the countries will take in the field of social policies in particular, in the, let's say, follow-up of the European Social Charter, will facilitate the situation of many children. Let us be clear about the fact that if you are born in a poor family, you are a poor child. So it means that we have to have an overall approach, not only to the child per se, but also to the family. But what I think is very important is to understand in the policies that are going to be defined that if you do not guarantee access to children from the very beginning to health, to education, to housing, and let's say to protection, social protection in particular, you are not opening the indispensable doors that will lead the child to become then a young adult and an adult later on with all possibilities, equal opportunities of real integration into society. So the question of poverty for me remains the most important one still, because we have to start to open the doors for these children from the very beginning. Otherwise, it can become really difficult and dangerous. So the changes in that perspective are extremely important. We also discussed about, in particular, the situation dealing with poverty and vulnerability of children now trying to find a new life in Europe, refugee children. But also migrant children, of course, are important. And what we have heard is appalling about the level of vulnerability, of denial of rights for these children. Not only the fact that many of them died during the transit from Syria, for instance, to Europe, but now 10,000 of these children are missing. We do not know where they are. So this is really such a threatening aspect, and we are very concerned about it as Council of Europe. So this is a point where, in terms of follow-up, we are going to be, as Council of Europe, extremely active to deal with the question of how to take care of children who happen to be abandoned because they were separated or lost, the adults who were with them, like families and so on. So we are going to work on this question of abandoned or children, refugee children, alone, because they need particular measures of protection. And this is a work where we need international I would say cooperation. For that purpose, the Secretary General of the Council of Europe has recently appointed a special rapporteur to deal with the issues of refugees in general and children in particular. Other aspects that we expect from the implementation of the strategy, the question of participation, as I said, is extremely important, because unless we give opportunities to children to participate, they will have difficulties afterwards, later in life, to feel that they are responsible citizens. So the question of how to provide them the competencies, the skills to participate, how to offer them the proper legislation and institutions that guarantee this participation, and the question of spaces for dialogue where they can participate and express their view on decisions that concern them, is extremely important. Another aspect or chapter in this strategy is dealing with violence against children. This is extremely important. It means corporal punishment to start with, but it can go very far in the field of domestic violence, and it can go really very far when you have sexual violence and so on, or exploitation. So all the work of the Council of Europe to protect children from violence has been very well presented here in Sofia, and we hope that the commitment of member states in ratifying the conventions that are dealing with the questions of how to fight violence against children will be properly continued. So question of violence, extremely important, because if we do not pay attention to that from the very beginning, these children will be really jeopardized, or they will suffer in becoming adults, able to forget and to be resilient. So this is a very important aspect. These are some of the things that we discussed. We are discussing now this morning the question of children in the new digital environment. Why are we doing so? In particular because we are aware that children suffer cyberbullying, for instance, on the internet. They suffer of hate speech against them. We have had too many cases in Europe now of children committing suicide because they were victims of insults or denigration on the internet, but also because of the phenomenon of radicalization on the internet that is taking place in relation to foreign fighters, etc. So the digital environment is an opportunity, but it can be a terrible threat to the well-being of children. So how to make the difference, how to protect children, and how to fight against hate crime, for instance, on the internet. So these are some of the different elements that we have looked at during yesterday and today, and we are very pleased that this strategy that people here like to call the Sofia strategy now exists, is adopted by our Committee of Ministers, has been presented here, and we have such a strong support from many partners from all over Europe and beyond Europe to make sure that it will be implemented in the future.
What about Albania in particular? Do you think that the Sofia conference will have an impact on the new law on child rights and policies for children?
Well, for what I said before, yes, I do expect now this strategy to have a very clear impact, particularly in countries like yours, that are now, your country is now ready, I would say, has all the elements to come forward with a good strategy for the Albanian children. So our expectations in Strasbourg, at the headquarters of the Council of Europe, are very high. We are now, as I said, crossing fingers and waiting for the final result before the summer, most likely beginning of June, I understand, to be able to celebrate a specific strategy, national one, inspired by the strategy of the Council of Europe, as it is the case here in Bulgaria. We have been also informed about the fact that here in Bulgaria the national authorities have already translated properly this strategy into the national strategy. So we expect more and more countries now to do that in order to really make it tailored, the strategy, to the specific needs also of the country concerned.
Okay. Thanks a lot, madam, and congratulations.
Thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.